atheists, at least the ones whose thinking is logically consistent on the matter, and Calvinists agree about one very important question. They both say the future is closed, free will is an illusion, and things are deterministic. Everything has been determined from the start. Now, you may be asking yourself, how did two groups of people with such diametrically opposed ideas about the universe, one of them says there is no God, we don't need God to explain everything, doesn't control anything. The others say that God is sovereign and he controls everything. And those two groups are in agreement upon this very fundamental question. Do you have free will? Do I have free will? Let's take a look at their positions and see why it is that even though you think they're coming from opposite sides of the coin, they're really two sides of the same coin. Let's start with the Atheist Materialist position. Sabine Hassenfelder has a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers. Huge YouTube channel. She is an atheist, physicist, slash artist, slash communicator, slash dry humorist, I would say. She makes very dry, desert dry, bones drenched in the sun for centuries dry jokes on her science channel. And she has had several videos really doing a good job of explaining why, if one has atheist premises, there is no God, the universe is just here, that free will is an illusion. And I know that some atheists will try to say, no, Mark, I'm an atheist, that doesn't describe my position at all. Well, listen to this gal's videos, this lady's videos. I mean, I don't agree with her premises, but her reasoning is, as it almost always is, just very hard to refute. It's so sound, it's so logical. And she said, look, there's nothing that exists except for space, time, matter, and energy. That's all we've got. So if you know you're made of molecules bouncing around, you're a group of atoms. And so if we know all the physical properties, which way they're going to bounce, if we know what your environment is, which way those molecules are going to bounce, there is nothing in there that allows you to make a free decision. And I'm like greatly oversimplifying. You can listen to her videos, a free will denier pointing to herself, and another one says, you don't have free will, but don't worry. I wonder why she'd even say that. If you don't have free will, do you even decide? Can you even decide whether or not to worry about it? You're either going to worry about it or you're not, based on her deterministic viewpoint. So, and everything is determined is another one of her videos, which is basically the same thing the Calvinists say. They say the future is closed. It is not subject to change. The end is set in stone from the beginning in every detail, but for different reasons. She's basically saying there is nothing supernatural to us or to the universe. Everything is material. Materials behave according to known laws. Therefore, if the balls start bouncing a certain way and the balls have a certain mass traveling across a certain surface at a certain velocity, then we can predict their future motions with 100% accuracy if we just have enough data. Why? Because everything's determined. There is no room for something like free will changing the course of the future. And some would say, and many atheists have said, well, what about quantum interactions? The fact that at the smallest levels, the universe does not behave strictly in accordance with these physical laws, but they sort of break down. And her answer to that one is, well, these quantum laws, they're not coming in, there's no God behind them changing things at the quantum level. There's no supernatural realm interacting with this realm. It's just noise that cancels itself out. And so in the big picture, it's like that doesn't matter. And it's more complicated than that, but some atheists use the quantum realm to try to say, well, this is our out, that a materialistic, naturalistic view of the universe doesn't necessitate that we're basically just a bunch of meat robots. But if those premises are correct, we are just a bunch of meat robots. And she says that with, I don't know whether her bluntness is good or bad or both at the same time. She says it with incredible directness. No, she doesn't want to hang on to any illusions. Free will is an illusion, and she does not want her audience to be suffering under any illusions. Now, I agree with her reasoning. The problem is her premises, and I'll talk about that more later. But if her premise is correct, there is no God, then her conclusions are correct. We don't have free will. She's wrong on her premises. But the Calvinists believe in God, and yet they also say we don't have free will. They also say the future is closed and determined. What's up with that? Well, let's take a look at the Calvinist reasoning next. And there's John Calvin, the father of Reformed theology. He's saying the same thing that atheist Sabine Hossenfelder, Dr. Hossenfelder, said, that everything is determined. The future is closed. Therefore, free will is an illusion. But he says it's true because there is a God, and God is ultimately in control. And he is in control of everything. He is sovereign. And his creation then cannot do anything that violates his sovereignty. That is the idea behind John Calvin and Reformed theology. Now, does that mean that, like Sabine Hossenfelder became an atheist? Let's say she stays an atheist until death. And then because of that, she is thrown into hell and suffers eternal conscious torment, as is standard teaching. Does that mean that God made her with no choice but to reject him and then punishes her for making that non-choice? That's kind of what that would mean, but Calvinists just embrace it. And they say, yep, that's God, and he's righteous. So many have a problem with that, and I kind of think this is where one place the Calvinist / Reformed theology goes wrong. Gosh, look at John Calvin there. Doesn't he just exude warmth, ladies and gentlemen? Can't you feel the love just looking at his portrait? Anyway, the problem there is their conception of the character of God, not his power. He can do anything, but that doesn't mean he's compelled to control everything just because he has the power to. In other words, he is all-powerful, and one of his powers is he can make a creation that he subjects to futility so that things do not go the way he wants them to all the time. Now, he can fix it in the end and make things right, but during the space of creation here, it doesn't go the way he wants it to all the time because he allowed it to go its own way. In other words, God is not a control freak. He doesn't have a personality disorder. And I really think humans gravitate towards the philosophy that basically reflects God looks a lot like them. It reflects their own psychology. There's a lot of people that I think they're drawn to Calvinism. They like to be in control. They like to control things, and they have a God who is like them. And I know a lot of the Calvinist teachers, like they'll dress hip and they'll pose hip and have a hip set when they do their videos and sort of cover it up real well. But yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people with control issues drawn to Calvinism. Does that mean it's wrong? No, it's wrong for a bunch of other reasons, which I will not get into here. But I just want to say John Calvin came to the same conclusion as Sabine Hossenfelder for one reason. He couldn't see a God that didn't use all the power that he had. He couldn't conceive of God letting go. And I think God is big enough to let go. And you may say, well, there may be some other apologetics issues on down the line. The other school of thought is the Arminians, which says we do have free will. God may have had foreknowledge of our choices, but they were truly our free choices. And you may say, well, Mark, what about people that he created them knowing it's a free choice, but he knew they'd make the wrong choice? There's an answer for that too. There's more than one answer. But let's take a look at the Arminian option a little bit, which basically says both the atheists are wrong and both the Calvinists are wrong. Those who say we have no free will for the opposite reasons. One, because there is no God. We're just matter in motion, and the molecule is going to bounce how they bounce. It isn't a matter of our choice or our decision. And the other says because there's a God who set all these molecules in motion, and they're going to bounce the way he said for them to bounce, and it's not your decision. So those two, their different philosophies really produce the same outcome on this question, but there is another Christian position here. So is there anybody out there who doesn't think that we're basically meat robots that have no choice other than to act in accordance with our programming or the way the molecules bounce? Sure, the Arminian position is a position that God is able to let go. Yes, he is sovereign, he is all-powerful, but part of his all-powerfulness is to let go and to give his creation freedom to choose even things that are against his will. C.S. Lewis, Clive Sinclair Lewis, he summed it up this way: if a thing is free to be good, it is also free to be bad, and free will is what has made evil possible. Why then did God give them free will? Because free will, though it makes evil possible, is also the only thing that makes possible any love or goodness or joy worth having. And I think that's so right. What does it mean if we love God if we were just programmed to do so? So there is a position, but then people worry about, well, then what does that say about God's sovereignty? What does that say about, on the one hand, or what does that say on apologetics questions on the other? So how do you balance these things? And most people think there's just the Calvinist view, if you're a theist, the Calvinist position, which says, nope, God is the determiner, or man is the determiner of man's future. Now, I hold to an intermediate position. It's like the Lutheranish position on the issue, is that, and it kind of ties in with what Sabine Hossenfelter has said, that basically we have ordinary free will, choosing and making decisions on our own, but that choice to say no to ourselves in order to say yes to God is not a decision that we would make. Like our parameters of freedom don't allow us to really surrender to God unless God helps us. Man in his natural condition is what Sabine Hossenfelter has said we are. Just molecules in motion, matter, time, space, and energy. And that's all we are, and that's all we can be. And we're trapped in this material universe, and we cannot make a true decision to give our lives up to something beyond it without divine help. But the divine help exists, and God calls us and enables us to say yes to him, without which we could not do so. Yet, we can still say no to him. He can enable us, but we can still tell him no. He has to enable us to say yes, but we can still say no. Is that deterministic? No. Is that a closed future? Maybe. There's two ways to look at that. It can be a closed future, or it can be an open future. And open theism is a different thing. I'll talk about it a little bit here. But that is, and I'm not comfortable with open theism, if you're alarmed, by the way. So that's the issue. That's the issue. There's not only those two positions on the extreme, because they argue with each other and pretend like there's no middle ground. There is a middle ground. That's probably where the truth is found. Let's talk about the end then. What does this say about the end and whether the future is open or closed? So on that question of whether we choose God or God chooses us, there really is some ground in the middle, and the truth is to be found, if that middle position I described is correct, in the middle. We can't choose God unless God chooses us first and enables us, but we can still tell him no. Therefore, the future is not deterministic. Now, does that mean that God is unaware of the future? Because that's kind of what open theists claim. They say that God didn't create time, he's in time. Time is a property of existence and God exists. To me, that is too low a view of God for me to be comfortable with. There is a caveat, though, because you see, you've got these, just like with the other question of free will versus predestination, you've got God over here knowing everything in advance and the future being closed and him deciding everything. And then you've got open theism where man is deciding a lot of things. And it seems like there's no ground in the middle, but there is ground in the middle. Jesus Christ, the Son, is the middle ground. Okay? Is the future open or closed? Is really a way of saying, has God, if you believe in God, has God determined it all, or is man going to have his say? And what God did in the Son, because we have a Trinitarian view of things. The Orthodox Christian view is to have a Trinitarian view, and the Son became man. So let's say God has perfect foreknowledge of all his creatures. The Son is simply if you have the Father, you have the Son. The Son wasn't created. He was, because of who the Father is, you have the Son too. And so, not a created being. So, Christ is fully God and fully man, and I would say Old Testament Christophanies too. There are many times where he acts like he has limited knowledge. Not the Father, perhaps, but he does. When he intervenes, are his choices all foreknown as a non-created being acting in time? In other words, they're looking at the future like a box. You have closed and open. Is the box closed or the box open? You look at the beginning of the story, the box is closed. You look at the end of the story, the box is closed. You say, well, the box is closed. Well, what if the writer can come down, or the writer's son, and come open the box, rearrange the things in the box and put it back down, close it again? At the end, the box is still closed, but those things were not where they were before. God, the Father, may have known the free choices of everybody when the box was sitting there at first, all the pieces set in place, and he knew their free choices in the end, but then the Son comes and changes things in the box and has interactions with the people in the box, and that affects their free choices. And so things are changed, but as soon as the Son quits messing with the box becomes closed again and stays that way until the end. So there is a middle ground between this open future and closed future, and it revolves around the nature of the Son and the power of the Son and the importance of the Son. And I don't think either theology we've looked at so far gives adequate importance to the Son. The Reformed Calvinist view gives a lot of importance to God and nothing to man. The open future view takes a lower view of God. It gives a lot of authority to man to determine what the future is, at least for them. Where's the Son in either one of those ideas? I say the future would be closed with God's foreknowledge of how it'll all turn out. And the Son, instead of being open, but the Son can make it open for the time he interacts with man. And then he goes back to where the Father is, because the Son can choose, just like it says in the Bible, Christ set aside his divine traits and became man. He will willingly set aside, let's say, his omniscience. And then he made choices. Now, what does that mean the Father did? The Father had to trust the Son's character. You're in a situation where you don't know anything. You will do the right thing anyway. Not because you know the outcome, but because of who you are. My son, you share my nature. And so the Son had faith in the Father. In a way, you might say the Father also entrusted the Son. Why? Well, look at what it says in the Scriptures. In Colossians, it says, all things have been created through him and for him. So can it be that no choices are left to the Son, that the Son can't change the future at all if it's all for him? God the Father created the universe through him and for him. Therefore, it seems unreasonable that the Son would have no say-so or input into how things go in this thing we call time, in this world, in this universe. And I call that reclosure theism, because it isn't, the future isn't open, the future is closed, but the Son can go and change things around and basically open the box and then shut it back up again. As soon as the Son is through interacting with mankind, it goes back to being a closed future where people had free choices, but those choices are foreknown. Now you say, Mark, how do we know that God's going to choose the best future then? How do we know that that's going to work out for the best? Because you've got the Son doing things in here, and what if despite his great character he makes mistakes? Or what if we as people make mistakes and that causes suboptimal outcomes? How do we know God is going to fix it? Because the work of Christ is going to completely undo the fall of Adam when it comes to eternity and our eternal fate. And also, hell is something different than you typically think it is. Most of these people that wonder about how God can throw people into hell don't understand how hell is giving people who don't love truth the lies they want for eternity. Because it's terrible, but it's what they want. It's not good, but it's what they want. They chose it. They embrace it. They will, if you give them the choice to enter into heaven and experience ultimate truth and love, they will run from it and hop back into the abyss. As torturous as it is, they hate the truth more than living a lie. So, but I digress. The bottom line is, and you see my videos about the afterlife and about the eternal fate, and basically, are we giving God? It's not universalism, but more people are going to have a better final condition than what you might think listening to most sermons, listening to most the theology of most churches. And it's because of the Son. It's because the Son enables things to be evaluated, to each of us to be evaluated in what life would be like if we were raised in a world where Adam did not fall and where the kingdom of God was able to grow uninhibited by the kind of things that humanity has chosen to do it the hard way, starting from Adam and then each of us when we disobey God. So there you have it, folks. Calvinists and atheists agree, and they're both wrong for different reasons. There is a right answer, though, and as usual, the truth is found in the middle, the truth is found in balance, and guess what? The truth is found in the Son of God. It's the set of ideas, it's the philosophy and theology that most glorifies him and puts him in the middle that is correct. Thank you.